Mr. Gavaskar, thank you so much, sir, for joining us again here on NDTV. Good to have you here on the show. First up, you would say that this will perhaps go down as one of the better test matches that we have seen in recent times, and an overall a great advertisement for the longest format of the game.
Absolutely. I think we had everything in it. And you know, from the first ball, it was just a gripping contest. Anything could happen every ball. It was almost that kind of a feeling when you were watching the game. And you know, full credit to the players for the way they played, because the bowlers bowled well. There was some fine batting as well, and the fielding was quite outstanding. The wicket keeping of Wriddhiman Saha, absolutely top class. So I think we had everything, all the ingredients for a very, very good test match. And of course, at the end of the day, a very good result for India as well.
Absolutely.
That's
a great result really for Team India. And one of the big talking points, sir, that everyone really is talking about is the way that India have managed to come back to win this test, because there was, after all, a time in this test match, even at the beginning of day 4, in fact, when it looked like India was staring at a 0-2 scoreline. In that context, sir, on a scale of 1 to 10, how highly would you rate this comeback win by Team India?
I would rate it 9 out of 10 because, you know, one, they had conceded a first innings lead of 87. Now on a pitch like this, that is a very, very substantial lead, and therefore that partnership of Pujara and Rahane, that 100+ partnership, certainly was the saviour as far as I'm concerned, because they gave India the extra runs. I think the batting after that was a little bit forgettable, a little bit careless, a little bit overconfident, and maybe I think those players who got out in the manner that they did, they should be looking at it, because you do not really want to repeat that. Because you will always not be able to win a match from that kind of a situation. But full credit to Ravichandran Ashwin. I thought he was a little more sort of worked up in the first innings, because Nathan Lyon, an off spinner, had taken 8 wickets, and he seemed to be rushing through his overs. In the second innings, he seemed a lot more relaxed. He took his time between deliveries, and you saw the result. Absolutely fantastic.
Where would you say, sir, the match turned as far as this particular test is concerned, and on day 4, what was the big turning point?
I think the big turning point as far as I was concerned was the Australian skipper's dismissal in the second innings, because, you know, till then it was pretty much, you know, going neck and neck, level pegs all over. But I think the Australian captain, after that brilliant 100 that he'd got in Pune, was always going to be the danger man. But he unfortunately got one of those deliveries that scooted along the ground and could do very little about it. So I think that to me was a turning point, because he was batting well as well. He was batting I think he got 28. So he was looking good, looking settled. You didn't have too many runs to chase. So his was the crucial wicket, and his was the turning point.
You know, I have to be honest with you, sir. A few fans were, more than a few perhaps, were a little worried when they saw that the target was 188. Now, going by the pitch that was on offer, but you would say that 188 was actually a daunting target, even though it might not look like a very big target on paper.
You know, I would have been as an Indian, I would have been happier with about 225, another 40 runs. But at the end of the day, I think 188 also proved to be more than enough, because it's just that psychological thing that you're trying to, you know, have on the opposition. Because if in the first innings they haven't got more than 200 runs, then, you know, if you set them more than 200 runs in the second innings, about 220, 230, then they're going to think to themselves, you know, well, this looks pretty difficult, and you actually win the match in the dressing room itself. So full credit to the Indians for the way they kept pegging on. I thought Virat captained the side quite brilliantly. I think first innings, his captaincy had left a lot to be desired. His bowling changes, etc., were not quite spot on. Not in the second innings. Second innings, he got everything right. 10 out of 10 to him for his captaincy in the second innings.
Right, I actually wanted to ask you about Virat's captaincy, but I remember I had promised you sometime back in the past that I'm not going to ask you about Virat's captaincy, at least till a few series has been played. But you're saying that you know, he was very good and spot on as a captain, especially in the second innings, especially the way he marshalled his troops, because we were talking about how Jadeja might have been underbowled earlier.
Exactly. I think so. This time he made sure that, you know, the bowlers, particularly the new ball bowlers, were used in short bursts, 3 overs, 4 overs, not too long, bringing the spinners on. He kept Ashwin on at one end, which was the end from where he was getting a lot of purchase and turn. And more importantly, I think the field placing was absolutely spot on. He had the fielders in the right positions. So everything was just perfect. And, you've got to give him credit. If I said he underbowled him and underbowled Jadeja in the first innings, because that's what I felt. Now I feel this time around, he did absolutely brilliantly. That's why I'm giving him 10 out of 10.
Right. We've also, of course, spoken about in the past how, this is a contest between the top 2 ranked teams in the world. So we can expect some very good cricket to be played. And that is exactly what we've seen so far. And the series scoreline really suggests that, things will only get better in the 3rd and the 4th tests. But if you talk about the Australian batting order, Mr. Gavaskar, this is, of course, a team that has challenged India, perhaps like no other team in the recent past. Would you say that this particular loss, and especially the way they batted in the 2nd innings, has exposed some of the chinks in their armour, which India can look to target much more in the tests in Ranchi and Dharamshala?
Yes, I think the youngsters haven't quite come to the party. Peter Handscomb in this innings, 2nd innings, looked pretty good till he went for that big hit because he realized at that stage he was running out of partners. So there is a lot of promise there as far as Peter Handscomb is concerned. Sean Marsh batted well in the 1st innings. But yes, I think their middle order probably is just a little bit vulnerable. Depends quite heavily on Steve Smith to get the runs. And I think Mitchell Marsh's position perhaps is going to be in jeopardy because they might want to bring in somebody who they can use more as a bowler as well, rather than having Mitch Marsh bowled maybe half a dozen overs in the 2 test matches, or a dozen overs in the 2 test matches. So maybe they'll bring in Maxwell or they'll bring in Ashton Agar. I think that's the one change that I foresee for the Ranchi test as far as the Australians are concerned.
Right. Another thing, Mr. Gavaskar, which is making headlines everywhere right now is a sort of controversy which has erupted after this test match as far as the DRS reviews are concerned, where Virat Kohli has apparently told both the umpires and the match referee that the Aussies look towards their pavilion for help before taking DRS reviews. We saw the umpire, Nigel Long, I think it was, who walked up to Stephen Smith on day 4 after he was given out and told him that he can't take so much time. What do you make of this episode? Because Virat says that they have been doing it consistently, the Aussies.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people, in the commentary box were suggesting, that the Australians look up towards towards their dressing room or their dugout to get some input from their computer guy, because he's seeing it on the computer and whether they should go in for the review or not. But in this case, definitely it was quite blatant. You could see that Handscomb had, suggested to Steve Smith, and Steve Smith has actually, sort of asked of the guy staying in the dressing room, and that's not done. I don't think, that's in the spirit of the game. How the ICC and the match referee is going to look at it, it'll be interesting to see. But clearly, it is not in the spirit of the game, because you've got to take a review on your own and within 15 seconds. So I don't know whether, I certainly haven't seen earlier on the Australians looking up, but this one, clearly you could see that Steve Smith was asking for some guidance from the dressing room.